Notice, by the way, within this demonstration environment, I should mention, my name is Karen Berg. I may have a low voice for Karen Berg, but I am Karen Berg within this demonstration environment. But you can see I'm actually logged into Excel. With the 2013 platform, you can actually log into the Office platform. And what that affords you is now when I move around from machine to machine, I can log into that machine and this information will follow me. So if I show you right now, if I go to switch accounts and go to my actual account, it's actually going to change. The recently used list item will change to be associated with that person. And of course, all my current templates, some of the ones that I've recently searched on will show up. I can switch back and go back to the other one. So in this case, if you're on a machine that multiple users use, this makes it quite easy for each user to be able to log into Office on that machine. And this is in Excel I'm showing you, but this is actually across the board with Word and PowerPoint as well. And of course, you can see all the different templates that are available right from the get-go, and you can search for templates. So if I wanted to search for certain calendars, I can click on the calendars item, and it'll search for all the different calendars right there. So I can quickly open and create a spreadsheet based on any one of these just by double-clicking on it and opening it up. It'll download that, and right away, a template wasn't on my local machine is now available to me, assuming I'm on the internet, and be able to download and start working with. So with that, I'm going to jump over to another spreadsheet that I've already got populated so I can go through a demonstration of some of the shortcuts I wanted to share now. There's way more shortcuts than we definitely have time for today, but I wanted to go through a few that I see can be helpful and are more common. Before I'll do that, I'll mention real quick here, of course, the ribbon across the top. Many of us are already using a version of Office that use the ribbon, so you're probably pretty familiar with it. And that continues in the 2013 platform. You'll see there's definitely a variety of items under each tab. There'll be some tabs here that you may not see, and I'll talk about these a little later in the presentation, Power Query, Power Pivot, and so on. But they can be enabled in yours if you're using the professional version of Excel. So coming to shortcuts, number one, you've got the particular spreadsheet is it's a pretty basic spreadsheet, has a few formulas on it, not a lot to it. One of the first things that I wanted to highlight from a shortcut point of view is the ability to insert a date. To be able to actually quickly insert a date using a keyboard shortcut. So I've already pre-populated this field to the left with just a quick label. And on the right-hand side, by the way, I did this at the last minute, but just to make it easier so everybody sees what I'm doing, the different control functions that I'm going to be using today. So you see because obviously you can't see these when I'm, you can't see me typing, so Control semicolon will automatically populate that field with the date. So no matter where I am, I can just go to this field, hit Control semicolon, and it'll actually populate with that date. Of course, Control Z, I can hit Control Z, and it'll undo my last function, so that'll always be available, another very common one that probably many of you are familiar with. Now, similar to date, I can also insert the time, and that's using a Control Shift colon. And again, it's going to populate that particular field with the time. Quickly and easily, I can, whenever I need to put the current time in a field, just Shift Control colon will populate that field with that time. Now, there is another way, and this way is not necessarily a keyboard shortcut, but I want to just mention it. Many may be familiar with it because the idea of using formulas is definitely something that Excel is very powerful at. But you can also insert the time and date using a formula. And the formula is just by typing in a cell, type equals now, and the open and close colons, and you can see that it automatically populated that field with the time and the date. Now, probably the key thing to note is that when you click on that particular item, you'll see that it's actually populating it with the actual, formula. And I accidentally cleared that. So the formula is always going to be there. So it's always going to actually show that if you anytime you refresh this spreadsheet, it's going to populate it with the actual current date and time. So this is something you want to use not necessarily as often as the other one where you want a flat particular date and time, but if you want it to be dynamic, it is another way of actually populating and producing the date and time. The next one I wanted to talk about is just when you want to actually edit a field. There's multiple ways of even editing a field. If I click just once in a cursor, you'll notice that it's not in edit form yet. In order to edit it, you can enable editing a few ways. Number one is just by double-clicking in the field. So if I double-click, I can now edit. Another way is actually going up to the function bar and starting to edit it up there. And then finally, another way that you can edit it is using the F2 button on the keyboard. Just like everything with many Excel or Microsoft solutions, there's always many ways to do a particular function or workflow, and this is just an example of that. Another item that I think is pretty slick and nice to show is what happens if you want to expand out through columns or through rows a series of dates or days and things like that. And that's very easy to do. If you look at this particular field, I've got the Monday in there. If I actually hold the Control key down, and you'll notice as I go down to the lower right-hand corner, a little plus sign appears, and I can just expand that out. It'll actually put out all of the days and fill in the series, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right there. I didn't have to actually manually edit all of those. I just had to go in here and change this to fill series versus copy cells. And the same thing can be done here. If I just drag this down without holding Control, it'll actually automatically do the series quickly without actually even copying. So you can see it actually put the full dates out, put the days out. I didn't have to actually do any of that manually and populate those fields in any type of manual basis. So another way to quickly take care of populating fields with dates or days and so on. Another item people sometimes wonder about is how do I want to clear fields that aren't necessarily connected but a bunch at the same time. And just like a lot of things in Windows and in Office, that's just a matter of holding the Control key and selecting multiple items at the same time. I can select multiple fields at the same time and then hit delete, and you'll see that they all got deleted at the same time. I can then hit undo, of course, and bring them back. So it's another way of using the Control key. Now, what if I wanted to highlight a particular entire column within a sheet of data? I can highlight just one item, and if I want to highlight this entire column, I can use Control Space, and it'll actually highlight that entire column. Along the same lines, if I wanted to highlight and to copy perhaps or to make some changes to an entire row, Control 9, and actually that one does the hide. I went one too fast. It's Control Shift Space. Will actually select the entire spreadsheet without the headers, by the way. Control Space to actually Shift Control Space. I'm sorry, to highlight the entire spreadsheet. And probably the last one I wanted to show here has to do with, let's say you have a sheet that's more complex and has a lot of formulas, but you want to view all the formulas at once. That's where you can actually hold down the Control key and hit the tilde key, which is the squiggly line at the top left of your keyboard. You notice when I hit the Control and hold that, it actually expands out, but it shows all the formulas that are within that spreadsheet. That now one that I entered earlier, the sum formulas, I can hit it again and turn that off. But if you need to get quick access at all of the formulas on your spreadsheet, another way to get quick access to that. So with that, I'm going to actually jump back into the actual deck. And go over some other slides before we get further on to some more demoing. I will be getting back to demoing, of course. So now everybody should be able to see the deck. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about data visualization. This is kind of taking data to the next level. Being able to actually graphically view and consume the data, which is important when you're sharing the data with people that are outside of maybe your normal audience, and the way to expand the usage of that data. And there's a few different ways you can do it. quickly and easily. Everything I talked about earlier, it can also apply to previous versions of Excel. A lot of the control functions are there for the previous versions of Excel. This one here, instant data analysis, is something that's new with 2013. But there's a quick analysis lens that allows you to instantly convert that data into some type of chart or a table in very few steps. And you can get a preview of how that looks and start getting an idea of how it looks before you even fully commit to it. So it's a great way of getting started and starting to share data in a visual way to make it easy for other people outside of the normal consumers of the data to understand. Another new way that you can actually help populate data within a sheet is something called flash fill. Flash fill will actually detect what you're doing based on data in other columns within that spreadsheet. This is something that historically people may have had to do on a more manual basis or by writing their own scripts in order to do that. And I'll show you how that works in just a second. Another item is kind of expanding upon what I talked about earlier, but actually creating a chart that's right for the data that you're about to present. And this is using the recommended charts function that's in the 2013 client. And what this will do is quickly give you an idea of what the most suitable and what the Excel technology team thinks it would be the best looking chart for the type of data that you're trying to present. It bases on the patterns within the data, and it'll actually again show an actual live preview of the charts as they would show once you actually commit to it, before you fully commit to actually creating the actual chart. You can actually pick the chart that shows the insights that you want, and then you can go to the next level where you can have more control over fine tuning and cutting out and adding areas to the chart that make sense for what you want to actually show. On the ribbon itself, you'll see there's some changes on the chart ribbon, including a lot of related types of charts that are grouped together. Again, the ribbon technology makes it much easier from a visual standpoint for people to actually consume these and understand how they use and get started with them, and they've continued to enhance it within the 2013 client. And then kind of lastly, in respect to this, is data labels and being able to actually make the data labels much more richer and refreshable from other data within the spreadsheet. And it can be basically connected to a pivot that'll reflect the data as it changes. A few other quick points with Excel 2013. Each workbook is its own window now. Some of the previous and earlier releases, they were all within the same window, with the actual program window, and you wouldn't be able to have multiple sheets open at the same time and see them on different monitors. Now you can do that. And then, the ability to integrate with apps. There's external apps. There's an entire app store community out there for office applications. And Excel is definitely part of that, where lots of third-party organizations have created applications that you can easily plug into and use and consume within Excel as you're using it. Let's go back to the demo. I'm going to open up Excel, and this is something that everybody can do themselves to kind of get an idea how these functions work. Some of the functions that I just talked about in this demonstration. If you open up Excel 2013, you'll notice usually near the top is this item called Take a Tour. And I'm going to go ahead and open this up. This is a template that allows you, as a user, to learn these functions related to analysis and charting and so on quickly and easily. And I'm going to go ahead and just use the same tool just so you can see that. So flash fill. I talked about flash fill earlier. This is where you have a column of data, and everybody's going to have large columns of data that they want to manipulate and work with. But maybe you want to actually just use a component that's in another column and pull that out. In this case, what I'll do is I'll type in Nancy, and if you look at the first column, the email address, Nancy is there as well. And then I'm going to start typing in Andrew, and you can see I just pressed the first few letters, and looking at the previous column or any other column within the spreadsheet, in this example, the previous column, you can see it's pulling that data from that column and automatically populating the rest of that column. If I